Hello and welcome to the Two Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathan.
And me, Adam. And this is a special episode where we will be reviewing NXT Takeover and the ROH New Japan G1 Supercard show. We will also be doing our WrestleMania predictions in the final segment. We weren't going to do any news this week, but I think we kind of have to based on what happened last night at the Hall of Fame. So the one bit of news we're going to talk about is the fact that, unfortunately, when Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart were being inducted into the Hall of Fame, Bret and Natalya were on stage and a fan jumped into the ring.
Don't call him a fan.
Well, okay. An idiot jumped into the ring and attacked Bret Hart.
Yeah, this was absolutely awful. Like, this kind of thing just shouldn't happen at the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is meant to be something that is based on respect and you know, looking through people's history and celebrating them. This kind of thing does not belong in wrestling. I never ever condone anyone jumping the guardrail. If you jump the guardrail, you are basically fair game. And that looks like that's happened. From the footage that I've seen that's leaked out sort of over the last few hours, it does appear that, you know, because the cameras cut away from what was going on at the time.
But from like fan cam footage from the stands and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it looks that like they've all quickly ganged up on him. And the one thing that I have seen is that as they're taking him away, Dash Wilder gets one almighty shot in.
Oh, he does.
And knocks the guy down. We haven't heard yet who the guy is or where he's from or any details.
The only thing I've heard about it was apparently he's upset that the women are going to be main eventing tonight, which...
So he's a progressive American male, shall we say.
I don't know how true those rumours are. That was just the one thing I have seen. There was obviously... It happened overnight. We were actually asleep when the Hall of Fame ceremony took place, given that we live in the UK, so it's just something we've seen this morning. But there's still sketchy reports about it. It's still not being sort of fully fleshed out in terms of reporting, so we don't want to give too much information in case it's incorrect, but that is the one rumour I have heard that was supposedly his reason. Why it was Bret he chose to attack, why he chose to do that at the Hall of Fame, to make a statement about women's wrestling is like, I don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. So you know what, that may be untrue, but that is the one rumour I've heard. But either way, I think I'm in the same boat as you, where I just think
we don't condone this.
What an idiot.
Yeah, we do not condone this, and I think the main thing is that we can say this absolutely, like this guy does not represent wrestling fans. I don't even want to call him a fan. He's just some idiot that's gone there and tried to cause trouble. Like, he's not a wrestling fan, and he does not represent any of us.
Yeah, totally agree. And with that sad sort of bit of news out the way, we can move on to genuinely, and I don't think I'm overstating this.
No, you're not.
One of the best wrestling shows I've ever seen.
Totally agree. I absolutely loved it. Which show is it?
NXT Takeover New York. Just utterly fantastic from top to bottom.
Pretty much as close to perfection as an American wrestling show has been in years and years and years. I struggle to remember an event that I loved this much from American wrestling.
Yeah, I was trying to think today because like even going back to stuff like Money in the Bank 2011 with Punk and Cena in the main event, the rest of the show was really good, but was it to this level?
Yeah, but it's moments as well though. Like I mentioned Mania 30, but like really was Mania 30 that great? It's Brian.
Yeah, Brian was the main thing about that show. So I don't know when the last time a show in North America was as good as this one, and I really don't feel like I'm being hyperbolic in that statement.
No, we're not overstating how good this show was. So let's get started with our recap.
Yeah, so we opened with a really nice video package, and then when we started with the NXT Tag Team Championship match, which was between the champions War Raiders and Aleister Black and Ricochet. War Raiders did a cool sort of Viking-style entrance, which is always cool. They've done ones before for takeovers, but this was a really cool one. Black and Ricochet both got really nice reactions in what we now know is their final show on NXT, and we sort of got started from there. So Raw and Black did some nice chain wrestling to start with, leading to Raw taking him down and letting him know he could have punched him in the face. They then went back and forth again, and Black returned the favour by letting Raw know he could have kicked him in the face. There was a moment of respect after that, and then there was a moment where both Black and Ricochet rolled over the top of Hansen and Raw when they set up for a back body drop, which was cool. But what was even cooler was later on, Hansen and Raw did the same to them, which was just insane athleticism from the big boys. Hansen hit forever clotheslines to both Black and Ricochet to rapturous applause. Ricochet caught Hansen out of midair in a marvellous show of strength and hit a fall-away slam. Black ate a knee strike from Raw, but hit one of his own, and then a beautiful German for two. Ricochet missed a handspring enziguri, and Hansen hit a handspring elbow. Raw hit shotgun knees on Ricochet, who looked like he'd been shot out of a cannon. Like, the way he took that move was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, like I nearly jumped out of my seat because when I saw it, I was genuinely concerned for him. And then after about half a second, I was just like, he's just sold it that well that he's jumped back. It was like how everyone should take the shot, any kind of shotgun move.
Yeah. War Raiders went for Thor's hammer, but Black countered it into a Meteora before hitting a golden triangle moonsault to the floor. Raw hit a scary-looking tope where he caught his feet on the ropes as he was diving out, and then that was followed by a space-flying tiger drop from Ricochet, and then a swanton onto everyone on the outside by Hansen. The crowd was ready to turn on the match as they teased a double count out.
Oh, they were.
They were really, like, you could hear.
So were we.
Yes, I was like, I can't believe they're going to end it this way. But they didn't. Ricochet and Raw got back in at the very last minute for, the biggest count beating pop outside of Japan probably ever.
Yeah, because obviously in Japan, it's an admiration thing where if ever someone shows that fighting spirit, they get back in right at the last second, the crowd always applauds. In America,
especially if they leave it to the last minute like these did, it would, in Japan, that would have got very much the and then the applause following it.
Exactly.
This was just you never get that reaction in the States because it's not how wrestling fans react in that country, but they really did here because of how well they teased it.
Yeah, I think it almost came across as like, thank God this match hasn't ended that way as well, because the crowd up until this point were loving it, as were we.
Mm-hmm. So Black came back in and hit Black Mass, and Ricochet followed with a shooting star for a great near fall. He then missed the 630 though as Hansen pulled Raw out the way before War Raiders hit Thor's hammer. Hansen took out Black with a tope suicida, and they hit Fallout on Ricochet for the win. Awesome match, great opener. The two teams showed respect post-match, and then Ricochet got an ovation. Ricochet and Black got an ovation from the crowd. This was absolutely fantastic tag team wrestling. Two great teams just going balls to the wall from start to finish. Really, really fun. And then the nice moment after the match where they bowed to each other, and then Ricochet and Black sort of showed respect to the crowd and were given respect in what will be their final ever NXT outing.
Yeah, totally agree. I loved this match. It was exactly what tag team wrestling should be, and two unbelievably good tag teams. Obviously, War Raiders totally makes sense. They've been a tag team for a long time, but I don't think any of us truly realised how good Ricochet and Black would become in such a short amount of time, and they've become really good.
I think it more for me is I didn't think they'd ever fit together. Like when I heard Ricochet and Black as a team,
so different.
Yeah, just why would they work together? But you know what? For some reason, they do.
It does work,
and I don't know why.
Black's this. I'm not going to say moody because I'm not Michael Cole, but this dark and mysterious babyface that doesn't actually always do the right thing. And then Ricochet is this cocky, confident guy who knows how good he is, but
he's the one and only.
He is the one and only, and they just shouldn't fit. But to be fair, WWE have made careers out of putting people together that don't fit and somehow making it work. Look at Team Hell No, look at X-Pac and Kane. They've done it year in, year out now. They're very good at that.
Very true. And with that, we then moved on to the NXT North American Championship match as Velveteen Dream defended against Matt Riddle, or Matthew Riddle, as Velveteen would refer to him as.
DREAM is.
Yeah, and speaking of Dream and his entrance theme, he came out dressed as the Statue of Liberty and was carried to the ring sort of Persian prince style on a throne. It was just utterly ridiculous in exactly the right way.
If, like I always say, like if he is Prince if Prince had been a professional wrestler. It's just so, I love it. That might be my favorite gimmick in wrestling, the Velveteen Dream gimmick. It's so awesome.
Well, the crowd absolutely loved Dream, and they very much played that up in this match. They kind of played it up early on in terms of them both going to the corners and Dream getting a massive reaction and Riddle getting a decent reaction, but not to the same level as Dream.
It was like the RVD hot dogging, wasn't it? Where like RVD would just bask in the glory.
Okay, Keith Lee.
I know, but bask in the attention of the audience. It felt like that.
So Dream went in, but Riddle managed to take him down and looked for a Kimura, but Dream managed to make it to the ropes. They then went into a test of strength, and Riddle transitioned beautifully into an armbar, but Dream got the ropes again. Dream then stomped on Riddle's foot and started going for covers, but Riddle kicked out. He hit a back rake, very Young Bucks-esque back rake.
They'd be proud.
Matt Jackson would be very proud. Riddle sort of got angry after that and started hitting rolling gut-wrench suplexes, just insane core strength from
awesome.
Riddle.
Like that's so much harder than to do the triple Germans or the three amigos or anything like that. Like that is just legit raw strength.
Yeah, just anything gut wrench wise, because of how you have to carry the person. They can't help you that much. They can push themselves up by pushing up on your legs, but it's a lot of it is dependent on you rather than them, which is kind of rare for a wrestling move.
Whereas like with suplexes, a lot of the momentum is done by the guy receiving the move, because you've got to jump and push yourself over.
So Dream then hit multiple double axe handles, which I absolutely loved, and we kind of realised at this point how much of his moveset is influenced by Macho Man.
Yeah, we'd never realised on how much of it like his gimmick is similar in certain ways as well.
They went to the outside and Riddle hit a lovely German suplex on the floor, and then back in the ring we got, and Riddle lit him up with some chops and then hit the brought on. They traded strikes back and forth, and Riddle followed with running forearms and an exploder. The brought on and a PK got 2. Very nice PK. Zack Sabre would have been proud.
Yeah.
He looked for the Bromission and then transitioned into an armbar, but again Dream made the ropes. This was kind of the story of the match where Dream constantly found a way to get out of Riddle's submissions, which was interesting.
It was very babyface. It was the whole story. It was just no matter what, Dream couldn't be beaten.
Dream then hit a German, but Riddle went fighting spirit style and stood up and just no-sold it and hit a knee strike and a Fisherman's Buster for 2. Riddle laid in some more kicks and then another brought on for 2. And then Dream countered the Bromission, but Riddle went heavy on the elbow strikes and then got the European clutch for 2. Very Zack Sabre influence in this match he was. Mm-hmm. The triangle followed, but Dream managed to power out. He had a knee strike and then a brought asleep and the German for 2. And I was starting to buy into some of these finishes by this point. Mm-hmm. Riddle followed up with kicks, but Dream fired up and hulked up as well, which the crowd absolutely adored. Yeah, said the U, hit the big boot, but then he didn't hit the leg drop, which was disappointing.
So I was disappointed too.
He hit a double axe handle to the floor and then back in, and he hit a Fairmaster, and then he hit up top and looked like he was going for the Purple Rainmaker, but he flew into a knee strike, and then he hit a Desperation Code Breaker for 2. They went back up top again, and then they fought back and forth. Riddle managed to get the ankle lock out of that situation, and then Dream fought back, escaped, and hit a super kick. The Cradle DDT followed, and then the Dream Valley Driver connected, and Dream headed up top and went for the elbow drop, but was caught in a triangle. And at this point, I was convinced it was over.
Yeah,
but it wasn't, because he stunned him off the ropes, and then Riddle hit the Kota Ibushi style German suplex from the second rope and folded Velveteen in half. And I was very concerned about Velveteen's safety for a second, but Riddle hit it beautifully. And then the floating bro followed for 2. They traded strikes. Riddle hit a powerbomb and a knee strike for 2. And the Bromission followed, but then Dream countered into a cradle. And I just want to touch on how he cradled him. When he cradled him up, not only did he sort of lie on top of the shoulders like you would usually do in that submission sort of situation, but he sort of underhooked the leg and pulled it back, which would have made it even more difficult for Riddle to kick out. It was just a little detail, but I loved that. And Dream retained the title. I thought this was really, really good. Not quite as good as the opener, but really, really good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I liked seeing Riddle kind of played heel in this match.
Very much so.
And I enjoyed seeing that. And I just thought these two worked really well together. Dream with another great performance on the Takeover show. Riddle showing how good he actually is. So thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah, I loved this match. I had it in my mind rated pretty highly, fairly early on as well. I really liked it throughout. I thought Dream as you said, Dream had another massive takeover performance. He's not an amazing wrestler, but at the same time, he keeps having these really good big matches on takeovers. When it's a big match scenario, he pulls out all the stops.
When it's a big match scenario and you put him in there with somebody who's really good at working, he's awesome.
Yeah, and his character works out of this world.
Oh.
And Riddle showed how great he was and showed a different side to him. I know you'd seen before, but I'd never seen him work heel before.
Yeah, I've seen him work heel on the indies, but not really on a stage like this. It was he carried himself with such presence when he was working heel as well, that it really made me think maybe they need to turn him, to be honest.
I quite liked it, and the crowd gave him heat. The main thing I'll say is that it's a testament to how brave and brilliant NXT are, that they were brave enough to end Riddle's unbeaten run here, because I think that'll add to Riddle's character. I think it'll add to Riddle's run, and I don't think he needed an unbeaten streak.
Yeah.
I think it's done more for Velveteen than it has lost anything for Riddle. I think this is a really huge win for Velveteen, and I said to you I'd be more than in support of a Velveteen NXT title run, but I don't think it's going to be that much longer before he's main roster ready. I'm not sure the main roster will be ready for him.
Hey, we might see him on Monday for all we know.
Yeah, and I don't think the main roster's ready for him. I don't think they'll understand him. I don't think they'll be able to book him. They can't book anybody. Well, not anybody, but most people. But like Velveteen's going to be ready soon.
So Kushida was then shown in the crowd, got a lovely reaction. That was quite a cool moment. It'll be really interesting. We talked about Kushida signing with NXT, and we talked about how we thought it was a good move really for everybody involved in that situation. Just be interesting to see how he gets on. I really hope they help him find some discernible character outside of I Like Back to the Future.
That's all he needs, though. Because he's a very, very good wrestler, great psychology, really like interesting style. You know, he's got a mix of everything in there. So his wrestling will get over like that. It'll be instant.
Yeah.
All he needs is a little bit of a character, and they don't even have to use the Back to the Future rubbish. Just give him something that, like, people think that like wrestlers need like gimmicks and all of that. And whilst I love Velveteen Dream, other wrestlers do. Like Johnny Gargano does not need a gimmick. It's the intricacies about the motivations behind that person, and that's all that Kushida needs is a reason for you to believe in him or to boo him or whatever they're going to do with him. That's all he needs, and when he gets that he'll be fine, and I think he'll be a very, very, very big part of NXT moving forward.
And next up, we had the WWE United Kingdom Championship match between champion for ever and 6 years on top of that, Pete Dunne and Volta. This was great.
This was violence in a nutshell.
I've loved Volta for a long time. I think Pete Dunne's great. I knew this was going to be fantastic, and I knew exactly what I was expecting from it.
You knew what you were going to get, didn't you?
And sometimes that's a dangerous thing, because you have this idea in your mind of what this match should be, and if it doesn't go in that direction, even if it's really good, sometimes it can come across as disappointing. But if I could have thought this match through in my head, I'd pretty much have done exactly what they did.
They gave you everything that you thought you were going to get,
and it was awesome.
And did it very, very well. This was utterly brilliant. I'll wait until you've gone through the recap before I give my exact thoughts. But I loved this match. I would, there's going to be nothing during this recap that I'm going to say, this was all right. Like everything was great. So I think I'm going to say that a lot tonight.
So they had a kind of a scrappy start, at first, not scrappy in a bad way, but scrappy in sort of the sense of the both were scrapping around and nobody could get on top. So Dunne kind of went for the hands, but Volta kept escaping, and he went looking for the chops, but Dunne kept avoiding. And then sort of Volta started using his size at that point, but Dunne was still avoiding the chops. Volta managed to then ground him, and then finally followed up with the chops. And Dunne then fired back, but got wiped out with a huge big boot. Volta hit some chops in the corner and then took it to the floor. He hit an apron slam and then back in. Volta stayed in control, grounded things, and started working on the leg, which was interesting because I've not seen Volta do much of that. He's more of a striker than anything like that. But Dunne then countered into the heel hook, which was absolutely beautiful to transition into that. Volta then lit him up with chops though and locked on the Boston Crab. Dunne made the ropes, but Volta laid in clubbing strikes until Dunne finally managed to attack the fingers. Volta kicked him in the face and sent him to the floor. Dunn rolled back in, and he had his very angry face on, shall we say, at this point, as they traded strikes. An enziguri from Dunn was followed with a grounded head kick, but Volta rolled to the floor. Dunn followed up with a moonsault, and then back in. He headed up top, but he was cut off. Dunn then attacked the fingers and slipped out into a Liger bomb for 2. Wow.
I know, that was
just
incredible.
Huge. Like, Volta is a big man.
He's obviously been training with big strong boy Tyler Bate.
Well, he was involved in Tyler Bate's training, so
There you
that
go.
would make sense. Tyler Bate had to get it from somewhere. So Volta battled back and hit a shotgun dropkick in the corner and then looked for the choke, but then transitioned into a German. A powerbomb followed for 2, and then Volta laid in strikes and chops, but Dunn fired up with slaps and just slapped the ever-loving hell out of him. And then he countered the chop once, but Volta kept firing and sort of started getting through more often than not. Volta hit some stomps, but then Dunn scored with another enziguri. As we got a double down at this point, the crowd's just going nuts and just applauding, and everybody's loving it, and I was just in awe.
Mm-hmm.
Dunn then started working on the hands, stomping them and laying in kicks on Volta, but Volta cut off the moonsault. He followed up, and Dunn smashed Volta's hand off the post. It made a sick noise, and I was just like, oh God, this is going to get rough from here. And then Volta hit a sleeper suplex off the ropes, which was very scary, and that got 2. Dunn countered the chop again and snapped the fingers, and then hit a German and then a crucifix bomb for 2. Dunn stomped the ever-loving hell out of Volta, but Volta fired back as they traded kicks. Dunn then rolled into the double-arm submission, absolutely just working the fingers, just joint manipulation, but Volta made it to the ropes. Dunn then caught Volta in a triangle when Volta went for a splash from the top. Volta powered out and then stomped on him, which was again brutal. This was a very hard-hitting match, but Dunn just would not let go of the hand. He went for bitter end, but Volta countered it with a huge lariat, and then Dunn fired back and finally hit bitter end, which I didn't think he was going to be able to do on the big man, but he did.
Incredible.
And it was really well hit as well, but Volta kicked out. Dunn was obviously really frustrated at this point, and they went back to a sort of strike exchange. Volta was just telling Dunn to keep throwing them, and Dunn sort of fired up at this point and hit a flurry of strikes. The ref then kind of backed him off, and the crowd didn't like that. Even though Volta was in the ropes, because the ref backed him off, the crowd really didn't like that, and Volta absolutely murdered him straight away with a big boot as soon as the referee moved. Volta then went up top, but Dunn cut him off, followed him up and locked on a hanging triangle on the ropes, and then Volta hit chops and then picked him up for a super powerbomb from the top. He went back up and hit the big splash and pinned Pete Dunne in about 26 minutes. Incredible match. New WWE United Kingdom champion. Pete Dunne's had an awesome title run, been champion forever. This was the right man to lose it to. This was the right way for him to lose it. Both guys came out looking like superstars. Pete Dunne's fantastic. Volta's fantastic. I don't have enough good things to say about this match. This was incredible.
Yeah, I don't think I can add much more than you've added. The actual match was just out of this world. Very European in terms of two men just beating the life out of each other. I'm amazed that Pete Dunne's chest remained intact.
Oh, yeah.
Because Volta regularly makes people's chests bleed from his chops. Somehow, Pete Dunne managed to keep his intact. But the actual match was just unbelievable. Like I said, just two men beating the ever-loving daylights out of each other, and it was out of this world. It's the absolute right person, as you said, for Dunne to lose the title to. Volta will be an unbelievable champion. I think he may hold that for quite some time. But the main thing now is that I think hopefully on Monday we'll see what happens, obviously on Sunday at Mania, but I think Pete Dunne should be on Raw or on SmackDown.
Do you think Dunne goes to the main roster?
I think he has to. He has been main roster ready for a very long time. And
I don't disagree with that at all.
If NXT is there for anything, like that's what it's for. It's to get people ready for the main roster. Obviously, if they have nothing for him, then don't bring him up. Like, if I would rather he stay down there in NXT UK than come up and have nothing to do, like in EC3, which we'll cover at some point soon, I would imagine. But if they've got something for him and they've got an angle for him, then they should go for it. He's ready, and he's been ready for ages, and he's good enough. He's a babyface. He can literally do whatever and have great matches. He's been ready for like a year at least. Just get him there now.
I totally agree in the sense that I think he's ready. I just can't imagine
them knowing
Vince
what to do with
looking at Pete Dunne and thinking, yeah, that's somebody I want on my roster.
But then you think about it, when you look at the majority of the main roster now, there's a lot of people that you look at and you think, well, Vince won't know what to do with them. And quite frankly, he doesn't. He doesn't, but they're there anyway, because I think Hunter kind of just, not pulls rank, because he can't pull rank, but just convinces people that they belong there.
And with that, we then moved on to the NXT Women's Championship Fatal 4-Way match between champion Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, and Bianca Belair. Now, what I'm going to say here might sound a bit harsh, but this was definitively the weakest thing on the show. But that does not mean it wasn't good. This was a great match.
It's like saying you were the worst world champion.
Yeah, like...
You're still a world champion.
We don't really talk star ratings on this show because we find them quite divisive.
And subjective, yeah.
And it just tends to upset people, so we kind of avoid them. But if I was to give this anything, I would have given it probably 4 stars.
I gave it like 3 3/4, yeah.
And yet, we're saying that that's the worst thing on the show.
Yeah, it was still really good.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Like, just absolutely incredible. So, there was a big brawl to begin with, and it sort of led to Belair and Baszler inside the ring. Belair overpowered Baszler, which was interesting, but Io managed to break up the pin. Sane then flied in and Belair attacked her. The Sky Pirates sort of worked together, doubling up on Baszler and Belair, and then they came face to face, which got a nice reaction from the crowd. They worked some counters, but as soon as they both ran towards the ropes, Baszler and Belair tripped them up and pulled them to the outside. Baszler then attacked Belair, using her hair to whip her to the corner, which was just great from Shayna. Shayna just gets everything about pro wrestling. It's amazing how quickly she's adapted to pro wrestling.
Psychology is fantastic.
Just unreal. She stomped away at Bianca's arm, but Belair hit a dropkick and posted Baszler on when they rolled out to the floor. Back in, and the moonsault got 2, and then Sane flew in with the beautiful flying elbow for 2. She followed up with kicks, and then Shirai flew in herself with a missile dropkick. The double knees followed, and then she headed it up top, and Belair caught the high cross and hit a fall-away slam for 2. Baszler came back in and ran wild on everyone, and then she had the hanging choke on Belair. Sane joined in, as did Shirai, for a Tower of Doom, and then Sane followed with the assisted dive, thanks to Shirai. And Shirai then hit the moonsault to the floor. Back in, and Belair cut Shirai off with the spear. It broke down again, and Shirai hit an absolutely beautiful German suplex on Shayna. Sane and Shirai worked over Belair, but Baszler broke it up, and Belair press slammed Shirai onto Sane and Baszler on the floor. She's freaky strong, Bianca. Absolutely freaky strong. She rolled Baszler back in, and Baszler countered into the Karafuda clutch. Belair fought, rolled and powered up, and escaped into the KOD for 2 as Shirai made the save. Shirai then hit the X Factor and a moonsault. She then went back up and hit another one, and Sane broke up the pin. They did say they would fight if they had to, so Sane broke it up, and she then slammed Shirai onto Baszler, headed up top, and hit the insane elbow for 2, as Shirai then made the save this time, so they both stopped each other from winning the title. The dropkick followed, but Sane connected with a DDT. Sane then went up top, and Belair hair whipped her and hit the KOD on both Sane and Shirai, which I did think it was going to go badly wrong at one point, but you know what? She did it, and she did it safely. She covered Sane, but Baszler made the save, and then she got the clutch on Belair. Belair tried to fight out, but again, similar to their one-on-one match, she had to tap, and Baszler retained. This went about 16 minutes, just balls to the wall like pretty much everything else on the show. I thought this was really, really good. We've just said it was the weakest thing on the show, and I do think it was, but I don't want to take anything away from these 4 women because I thought they all, in their own way, put on an absolutely amazing performance. I know you think Io is probably the most talented female performer in the world. I tend to think probably Asuka and Kairi are a little bit ahead of her, but they're probably the top 3 workers in the world, female-wise, for me anyway. But I just thought Shayna played a part. I thought Bianca was really good in this. I just thought everybody delivered.
Totally agree. They were all fantastic. There was no weak link in this match whatsoever. All of them played their parts brilliantly. and everyone did what they would do. This made Shayna look absolutely amazing, though. Can we just say that?
I did.
It like the fact that she retained her title in those circumstances. In the promo video, you know, she said about the fact that, you know, she keeps winning, so they just got to throw like several people at her at once.
I love that line.
This arrogance, but it's brilliant because it's arrogance that is actually deserved. You know, she should be this confident in herself because every single time she does what she says that she's going to do, she's a great heel, gets her character so well, and she's very quickly become one of my favourite female wrestlers. She's absolutely out of this world. It was a great match. I like the storytelling between Kairi Sane and Io Shirai in terms of, you know, them eventually costing each other. I do wonder where the division's going, though.
So do I.
I think we're heading, and I think I said this in general. I think NXT is heading very much for a generation change. It happens every couple of years, doesn't it? And I think we're approaching one now because you're gonna have like Candice LeRae and Katie Catanzaro. They're gonna be coming up, and they're gonna need spots. So I think there's gonna be a generation change in that division too, as well as the men division.
I wonder if they'll use EO as kind of an anger, because I've got to think, we'll get onto the predictions a little bit later, but we both predicted EO to actually win here.
We did.
And I found it kind of interesting that Shayna retained, and not only did she retain, but she did it without the help of any of the other horsewomen, which was interesting. But I do think Shayna and Kairi will be on the main roster before long. I think EO may stay around in NXT for a little while longer to sort of anchor that new generation, because that's usually what Hunter likes to do. He likes that one strong
piece
person
from the former generation.
Yeah,
stick
exactly.
Around.
So,
like Asuka was for so long. He said the one person that Vince couldn't have was Asuka, that he needed Asuka.
And like he kept Bailey around until he could build Asuka up when the rest of the four horsewomen went up. So he always likes to keep that one guy or girl to anchor a division while they're going through this generational change. And I do think probably Io is the right person to do that. Kairi's been in NXT long enough, and I think she's ready for the main roster, and so is Shayna. And I don't think Io's not, but I do think Hunter would probably like to keep her around for a little while to just anchor that division while they bring up the next generation.
Yeah, and she's been there the least time, so that makes sense for her to be the one to stick around. I do think you're right, and I do think Io will probably be that one to eventually take the belt off Shayna. Because Shayna's now kind of gone as far as she can possibly go.
Yeah.
I don't really think there's anywhere that can go with her. She's now as dominant as she will ever be. The one thing that I do possibly think, though, is that Io and Kairi going up together as a tag team would be really cool. But I think the smarter play, at least for Hunter, the smarter play is to keep Io around.
You could still sort of do them as a little bit of a tag team, I guess, because Sasha and Bailey said they want to defend the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Cross brands. So I guess you could do something where if they retain tonight at Mania, they go on to face the Sky Pirates somewhere, maybe at NXT, maybe Io joins Kairi wherever she goes on the main roster for one shot at a pay-per-view or something like that. There's nothing to say if they're going to defend the tag titles across the three brands that we couldn't see the Sky Pirates while Io still sort of anchoring that division. But
Quite possibly.
And with that, I think we'll move on to the main event of the evening.
Wow.
This is one of the best matches of the year.
Yeah, like we're not going to go like on star ratings in it again, but like this is a 5-star match.
No, this was perfect. So it was the NXT Championship 2 out of 3 falls match between Adam Cole, Bebe, and Johnny Gargano. The crowd was interestingly very pro Cole to start with.
It grew, didn't it? But like, because when we first heard the entrances, I was like, man, it's like 70-30 Cole. And then by the end of like sort of the first stretch, I'd kind of shifted to maybe it's a bit more 60-40. Like it just the Cole section did seem louder and a bit more vocal at the start than the Gargano section.
So they locked up to start with, and Gargano grounded things and went for covers. Cole escaped and got a headlock takeover, and then Gargano hit a shoulder tackle and looked for Gargano to escape, but Cole made the ropes. They traded strikes, and Gargano hit a Hurricane Rana and then dumped Cole to the outside. Cole then laid in some chops, followed up with knee strikes and then grounded things. Gargano tried to fight out but ran into a back elbow. Cole now worked a Dragon Sleeper, and then Gargano powered out, and they both went for a crossbody for a double down. They went back and forth with strikes, and Gargano hit lariats and a toss overhead. and Gargano followed with the rolling kick and then hit the slingshot spear for 2. Gargano then hit a flying sort of flatliner type move for 2, and then countered, sort of followed between both guys, and Cole managed to hit a backstabber for 2. Cole followed with strikes, but Gargano rolled him up and got 2, and then Gargano missed the sort of rolling kick, and then enziguri by Cole. He dropped the knee pad, and then Cole countered a sunset flip, and the last shot, Shining Wizard move, got the first fall after 14 minutes.
Really solid first fall. Like, you know, you could tell that it was building, obviously, but that always happens in a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was clearly building, and the first fall was pretty good.
So we started quick in the second fall. Cole started on the offense, but Gargano soon fired back, and they worked the apron, and Gargano speared him to the floor. The sort of apron cannonball followed. They went back in, and he went sort of for the slingshot DDT move, but Cole cut it off and hit the Ushigoroshi for 2. They worked up to the top, but Gargano fought off a powerbomb attempt and hit an air raid crash, Tommaso Ciampa style, for 2. Some interesting callbacks to Ciampa in this match.
There was a lot, wasn't there?
Back on the apron they went, and Gargano hit an enziguri and followed up with a slingshot DDT on the apron. Gargano broke the count and then got sent into the ring post. They went back in and they traded strikes again, and Gargano got an armbar and then transitioned into the Gargano escape, and Cole tapped immediately.
Smart heel.
It was very, very smart given how quickly he tapped, because he will have suffered, in theory, very little damage for this. This fall only went about 7 minutes, and was probably the weakest of the 3 falls because of how short it was, but it was still very, very good.
Yeah, and I just like the idea that Cole knew he was in trouble. He was in the middle of the ring. He knew, I can probably get out of this, but at the same time, I'm probably going to do more damage to myself getting out of it than I am just if I tap and I lose a fall.
And the thing is, if I do try and fight out of it and I then get caught immediately again, or he hits a slingshot DDT or anything like that, I've dropped the fall anyway, and now I'm going into the third fall at a disadvantage. Yeah. Whereas tapping straight away, he knew it just comes down to a singles match now.
Yeah, as much of a scumbag as Cole is, he's not stupid. He's very, very smart.
At some point, Gargano started bleeding during this this fall. By the way, I don't know. I didn't see where it happened, but it was just above his eye, and it was quite a thin cut, but quite deep. Yeah. So I don't know where that came from, but they started off really hot for the third fall as they traded strikes, punches, kicks, and everything, until Gargano absolutely murdered Cole with just a stunning lariat. Cole cut him off though, and hit the original sort of last shot. I don't know what he's calling it now. It's the brainbuster on the knee style movie. It was called the last shot in ROH, but obviously they've given that name to the Shining Wizard move now. So he hit that for 2, and then he headed to the ropes. He kept looking for the Panama City Sunrise or whatever. I don't know what they call his version of the sort of middle rope Canadian Destroyer.
I don't know if they've ever named it, but it used to be called the Panama City Sunrise.
Yeah.
Or the Panama Sunrise.
Panama Sunrise, sorry, yeah. But he kept looking for that quite frequently in this match, and I was just like, they'll let him hit it once during halftime heat, but I'm not sure he'll hit it. But
it has to. I think that has to be like his burning hammer, doesn't it? If he's going to use it.
So Gargano hit an enziguri, and then the lawn dart followed. It hurts donuts, or whatever it is that Gargano calls that move now, gets 2. I'd never heard it called that before, but I saw a lot of people talking about, that's what he used to call it in Evolve, and I didn't see much of Gargano in Evolve because I didn't really like the guy at the time, if I'm being honest. Can you imagine a time when I didn't think Johnny Gargano was all that good?
Yeah, I used to think he was really boring.
Yeah, I thought he was just king of the bland.
How little did we know.
Apparently that's what he called it on the indies anyway.
Yep.
So that got 2, and then they traded strikes and super kicks, and both men went down. Cole then hit a super kick, and a straight jacket German got 2. Cole looked for some kind of move. Some people thought he was going for a pedigree. I thought he was going for like a welcome to Chicago sort of, you know what word follows that, but I can't say it on this show. Punk's sort of move, or Jericho's move, sort of the powerbomb style backbreaker. That's what I thought he was going for, because I've seen him hit it a few times before, but maybe he was looking for a pedigree, I don't know. But either way, Gargano counted out, so we didn't find out. Cole then hit the Saito suplex, but Gargano followed with a Poison Rana and then a super kick, but Cole rolled out of the ring. Gargano followed up and then got sort of wheelbarrow Germaned into the apron, which was a nasty looking spot. And he's got thrown back in, but Gargano hit the draping DDT again, Ciampa's move.
Mm-hmm.
The slingshot DDT followed, and I really bit on this as the finish, but Cole kicked out at 2. A suicide dive followed, and then a slingshot into the super kick as he went for the slingshot DDT again. Cole caught him. So Cole then hit the destroyer for 2, which I was just shocked that they let him hit again. The crowd was just going absolutely mental at this point. I think this was the point where it started to reach fever pitch. Cole kicked Gargano at the floor and sort of started talking, sort of trash talking in Johnny's face, calling him a disappointment. Gargano then fired up and tossed him over the announce table. He cleared it out, but then Cole hit Ciampa's fairy tale ending onto the table, which did not break. The Japanese tables were out in force. Cole rolled in and looked for the count-out win. I thought that fit Cole's character perfectly, just rolling in and trying to take a count-out in a 2 out of 3 falls championship match. But Gargano barely, but he did, make it back in. Cole then hit a super kick and that got 2. And then he dropped the knee pad and went for the last shot Shining Wizard, but ran into a super kick. He then went for the destroyer, but Gargano countered it into Gargano escape. And then what happened? Undisputed Era turned up, distracting Gargano. O'Reilly took the sort of, I think it was Fish actually. He was either Fish or Strong, took the referee, and then that allowed O'Reilly to attack Gargano. And then the ref got bumped. Fish and O'Reilly hit total elimination on Gargano, but then when they rolled the ref back in, Gargano kicked out. Gargano sent Cole to the outside and took out all of Undisputed Era, but then when he went back in, Cole hit one super kick to the front of the face, another super kick to the back of the head, and then the last shot. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, Cole's winning the title, and Johnny Gargano kicked out at 2.94. Probably the best near fall I've seen all year.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Incredible. And then Cole just sort of didn't know what to do. The crowd's going mental at this point.
They've totally turned as well.
They have totally turned. They've worked this match so well. And then Cole sort of trash talks Gargano again, goes for another last shot, but Gargano counters into the Gargano escape, and Cole tries to roll through, but in the end has to tap. 40 minutes of pure brilliance.
Yeah, absolute perfection as well. Like we're not going to go over star ratings all weekend, but absolutely 5-star match, absolute perfection. It was out of this world. I bit on so many false finishes on the last fall, and I really thought that some of the false finishes were great because they fit the story so well. The amount of times that it was, looking like Gargano's niceness was going to cost him again. The fact that he was always just determined to do the right thing was going to cost him. And you know what? This time his niceness just showed off how awesome a person that his character is, and it made it all the more cathartic when he finally won the big one, and it's so deserved. We've wanted Gargano to be champion for at least a year now. He really has deserved it, and it's been absolute perfection. I loved it. One of the best matches I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. It's my second favourite match from this year. I think the only thing that I think was possibly better than this was Omega versus Tanahashi from the Dome show.
Yeah.
But to put anything in league with that just goes to show how great this match was. So I'm not taking anything away from it. I think this was absolutely phenomenal and an amazing sort of final match for what was an amazing show. And then after the match, we had Candice come out to celebrate with Johnny, which was a lovely moment. Johnny went into the crowd and celebrated with his family, hugged his mum and dad, and they then headed up the ramp. He was standing posing at the top of the ramp with Candice raising his hand. The watermark came up, but never trust watermarks in NXT. And all of a sudden, who would appear from behind in a callback to Takeover Chicago? Was it Takeover Chicago when he turned?
It was the
when
one.
Ciampa turned on
Yes,
Gargano. I think it was Takeover
so.
Chicago.
And then it was the one.
Then Takeover Philadelphia after he'd lost to Almas. He came out then as well and attacked him, but this time he came out and the three of them embraced, and it was just it didn't make much sense, as you said, but
no, but
who cares? It was a lovely, lovely end to what was an absolutely unbelievable show.
Totally agree. It was genuinely emotional, and like I said, it felt like a really cathartic moment. Gargano winning the title. We've all been waiting for it for so long, and this just added to it. And like in wrestling, wrestling's different to any other form of entertainment in the fact that as soon as something legitimately real happens, the storyline's forgotten because kayfabe exists, but we all know it's not real. We like wrestlers to follow kayfabe, but we know it's not real. So when something real happens, we kind of let it fall by the wayside. We know that Gargano and Ciampa are still friends. Like, come on. So the fact that this happened, it made it absolutely fine. And like I said, one of the best wrestling shows I have ever seen.
Great stuff. And with that, we will move on to New Japan and Ring of Honor's G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden. This was really good, but I think because we watched it not long after we'd watched Takeover, it felt a little flat in parts to me, just because I think
it
Takeover
was never
was that
going to
good.
live up.
Yeah, exactly. So I watched the Honor Rumble. I know you didn't on the pre-show.
Nope.
But the one thing I do want to mention, because I'm not going to recap the full match, it was a fine Honor Rumble. It was just there was a few fun moments in there, but nothing to write home about. But the one awesome moment was the final entrant in the Honor Rumble was the Great Muta, and the crowd went nuts, and it was just an awesome moment.
As well they should have as well. I'm stunned that they got Muta to do this, considering that obviously Keiji Muto, who is the Great Muta, is involved in other wrestling companies in Japan, Wrestle One and things like that. So I was quite surprised that he would do this for New Japan. But at the same time, he's always had that connection with New Japan. So
and he always will.
Yeah, always.
So we opened the main show with Jeff Cobb and Will Ospreay. I thought this was a super fun match. Cobb sort of ran wild early, but then Ospreay sort of fought back. He went for a Sasuke special to the outside, but Cobb caught him, sort of. But then Ospreay transitioned into the DDT. They worked back and forth for a while, and then Cobb just started using his power to toss Ospreay around. Ospreay fired back with strikes, but Cobb countered the Rana into a bear hug. Ospreay then escaped with elbows and followed with the back handspring kick, and then a springboard forearm followed for 2. Ospreay teased Stormbreaker throughout this match, but Cobb kept countering out and hit a huge fallaway slam where he launched him halfway across the ring. Well, it was probably more than halfway across the ring, nearly the full size of the ring. The Samoan drop and then a beautiful standing moonsault followed for 2. Ospreay caught him with the sort of hook kick, but Cobb answered with a super kick of his own, beautiful super kick, but then ran into the standing Spanish fly. Jeff Cobb is insanely athletic for a man his size.
Oh, it's amazing.
So Ospreay then kept teasing the hidden blade, but couldn't quite hit it. He countered Tour of the Islands into a code red for 2, and then hit a head kick, but Cobb just murdered him with a lariat. He went up top, but he missed the frog splash, and that allowed Ospreay to hit the Robinson special. He went for the Os cutter, but Cobb caught him and tossed him into the buckles. Ospreay rebounded out and hit the Os cutter for a great near fall. I properly bet on that.
Yeah, so did I.
We were quite into this match because we're both cheering the opposite person because of who we'd predicted in the predictions.
Yeah, we're going to have to cover that afterwards.
Yeah, we are. So Ospreay looked for the hidden blade, but then Cobb sort of got up quicker, I think, than he was expecting, so he hit the hook kick first and then looked for Stormbreaker, but Cobb counted out into the ropes only to eat cheeky Nando's. Ospreay then went up top, but Cobb hit a headbutt and then a super Tour of the Islands. He then hit it properly as he usually would and finished Ospreay. So Jeff Cobb retains the Ring of Honor Television Championship and wins the Never Openweight Championship. This was a great match, thoroughly enjoyed it, and a really good way to start the show.
Yeah, really good opener, really good match. Unfortunately, meant I was one down on the predictions for this show, but yeah, really good match. And I think it's interesting that New Japan are going with Cobb. We spoke about how the fact that New Japan do like Cobb, and it's really interesting that they've decided to take the belt off Ospreay and go with Cobb. I think that's possibly because they have now bigger plans for Will Ospreay,
which we might come on to a little bit later. Next up, we had Roosh versus Dalton Castle. Castle got in the ring, and sort of one of the boys had left one of these sort of fans in the ring, which distracted Dalton. So Roosh hit the running dropkick, bullhorns in the corner, and he hit it again, and then he hit it again, and Castle was done as Roosh beat Dalton in 20 seconds. That was brilliant. I loved the booking of this match because it allowed reason for Dalton's slide to continue, reasons for what happens in the post-match to happen, but also made Roosh look like an absolute killer.
Totally agree. I think it makes Roosh look great. It didn't need to go very long as well after the opener. It was like a cool down as well, and it built, because obviously Dalton's been going on this losing streak as of late, and therefore it built to what happened after the match.
Which was A very, very upset Dalton got a crazed look on his face and just absolutely murdered both of his boys. Never thought I'd see Dalton put his hands on his boys, but he did.
It was a sad moment, but it was also awesome.
So we'll see where that goes, because I'm interested to see what they do with Dalton going forward. We cut to backstage where we found out Juice Robinson had been laid out. And then when we came back to the arena, it was time for the Women of Honor Championship match between Mayu Iwatani and Kelly Klein. I really didn't feel this match. I don't know about you.
It was really flat. It didn't suck. It was just really, really boring. And Mayu Iwatani is a great wrestler. Like, she is very, very good. But it was really, really boring.
So the story of the match was sort of Kelly working very respectfully, and this was clearly the babyface turn for her. They worked a nice back and forth early stage. It got a bit boring in the middle of the match, and it really sort of came back to things when Iwatani went for a Rana later on. Kelly blocked it, but then Iwatani hit a poison Rana for 2. She hit a knee strike for 2, and then Kelly fought back with a German, but Iwatani just bounced up, fighting spirit style, and hit a lariat. She hit the super kick and a beautiful dragon suplex, and then Iwatani went up top, but she missed the moonsault. Kelly hit a lariat, covered for 2. The powerbomb followed for 2, and then she hit K-Power, followed by another for the win. So we have a new Women of Honor champion. It was, like you said, it didn't suck, but it was really flat and boring. Like, I think it went about 12 minutes, and I would say 9 of those minutes were not good at all.
No. And I do wonder whether the fact that Iwatani's lost the title means that she may be going somewhere. I do wonder, because if you're NXT, it would kind of make sense for you to try and get Iwatani as well and get all 3 of the famous Stardom trio on your show at least one time before maybe the rest of them go up. It would make sense, but yeah, this match dragged and it wasn't good. And the story of the match itself was good in terms of the booking and what they were going for, but it was not good.
So post-match, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky arrived, and Mandy Leon then came down to even the odds between Kelly and Angelina and Velvet, but she turned on Kelly and laid her out. All 3 of them beat her down until Jenny Rose and Stella Gray tried to make the save, but were very unsuccessful. They drew a thing on Kelly's head with a little A, and sort of they were announced as the Allure.
Was this the world's most telegraphed heel turn ever?
Yeah, especially with how long it took to. Where did Mandy
go?
Yeah,
she left the announce table, and then you got a ringside about 2.5 minutes later. Like, where have you been? The actual turn itself, though, I don't mind. Like, the fact that it was telegraphed isn't a bad thing. Like, you could just, like, as a wrestling fan, we've watched so much wrestling, we know what's coming. This at least gives the division some direction moving forward. Yeah, I don't love it, because we are effectively rehashing an angle from TNA from 10 years ago. Yeah. But at the same time, it does give them direction, because it's rudderless now with the losses of Emma and Iwatani.
Yeah, they were the only real people in this division with
good workers.
They were really good workers, and to be honest, I think the Women of Honor thing has been a failure for ROH. I really do. I
don't feel like they've invested in it properly, though. No. I feel like they should have gone out there and recruited properly, and they haven't. Like, look at AEW. AEW have shown, obviously they've got more money, but these people are out there. They are, and you know, like Britt Baker, for example. Are you telling me that they could never have got Britt Baker, considering Cole's connections with Ring of Honor? Like, come on.
Who knows? But we got Mega Ran performing next. The show at this point, it kind of sort of started to fall off a cliff a little bit to me. But Bully Ray interrupted. Mega Ran kind of begged off as the crowd just wanted to see Bully destroy this guy, which he pushed him down and sort of started cutting a promo, talking about what he'd done to Juice Robinson, and then all of a sudden, Flip Gordon's music hits.
Yeah, we got our hopes up a lot, didn't we, for this?
Well, we knew it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, but like, when we saw that, you know, Juice had been attacked, we suddenly turned to look at each other as if like, oh, it's Punk. It was not Punk.
Yeah, but it was cool return for Flip, and I mean, we knew the Punk thing wasn't happening.
No,
but it was a cool return for Flip. They sort of went back and forth, and then started the match. But then Silas and Shane Taylor attacked. which led to Juice Robinson inexplicably coming out, even though apparently like 5 minutes ago he couldn't be in the match.
It made no sense.
Coming out with Mark Haskins and saying, let's make this a 6-man tag. But you know what? When it got going, this was a really fun match. They just went back and forth. There was weapon shots galore. There was some really cool stuff like Flip just taking sort of kendo stick shots from every single heel sort of team member. They just went with some really cool stuff through that, good storytelling stuff, and really built off what Flip and Bully had managed to do at Final Battle. But it was a very wild match. Eventually, Taylor hit Greetings for 216 on Haskins and then went outside and got a wooden pallet. Juice made the save and hit the cannonball onto it on Taylor, which didn't look nice because there was spelks and splinters and everything sticking up from that pallet. And then Gordon attacked Bully, a super kick by Haskins, and then Juice slammed Bully. Haskins does the what's up on Bully, which got a nice reaction, and then Juice hit a spine buster and Flip hit the 450 for the win. This was just completely mental, really, but it was a really fun sort of distraction from almost a reset for the show, really, yeah. I felt.
It was a ton of fun. It made no sense. Like, how did Juice convince a doctor 5 minutes after he was unable to convince a doctor that he was able to compete? Ignoring all that, though, it was a ton of fun. Really, really entertaining match. Just balls to the wall, just throw the kitchen sink at everything, and it got the crowd back into the show. And it started to get going again. So like I really enjoyed this. It wasn't an instant classic, but a ton of fun. I had a lot of fun watching it.
So next up, we had a triple threat match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. This was fun. This was very fun. It went quite short, but it was Ishimori versus Dragon Lee versus Bandido. They just, me notes for this are not great because of how much they did in such a short period of time. It was just absolute balls to the wall. Bandido hit a Super Rana and Lee followed with a Destroyer on Ishimori. They worked back and forth again and Bandido hit a beautiful pop-up cutter on Ishimori that sort of Randy Orton would have been proud of. There was an insane moment where Bandido went up the top with Lee and Ishimori and picked them both up and hit a moonsault fall-away slam from the top rope with both guys in his arms. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
He's been working with Tyler Bate as well. He's a big, strong boy.
He's a big, strong boy. Bandido then hit a cradle driver, but Lee cut him off with a reverse Rana. And then a knee to Ishimori dumps him, and Lee hits his finisher to pin Bandido to win the Junior Heavyweight title.
Very surprised at this. Obviously, he pinned Bandido.
Not Ishimori.
So there's going to be a rematch coming there. I do wonder whether they have specifically given the belt to Dragon Lee.
Because Hiromu's coming back.
Knowing Hiromu's coming back soon, they have mentioned that it's pending. Not imminent, but they said pending. So it must be coming up soonish.
Dominion would make sense for that.
Dominion, Dragon Lee, against Hiromu would fit. And because obviously, for those that don't know, when Hiromu was working down in CMLL during his excursion, where he grew as a wrestler in terms of his character,
his feud was with Dragon Lee.
Yeah, so that would make sense to me.
So we had an electric chair wheeled out on stage, and sort of Destro used it to fire up PCO, as we now got the 4-way tag team match between GOD, Villain Enterprises, the Briscoes, and Sonata and Evil for both the ROH and IWGP tag team titles. This was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, principally because I think they kept GOD's involvement to a minimum, which I feel like we said when we were doing the Dome show and the Triple Threat Dome show match.
Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom, the same thing. We were like, it was good because GOD weren't in it very much.
Brody King was kind of the star of this match for me, doing some insane sort of lucha work that he just shouldn't be able to do. But you know what? I thought everybody played the part really in this. Even though we've just said what we've said, I thought GOD sort of worked well within the match.
They did what they had to do.
They did what they had to do. And PCO lit up Tonga with chops towards the end. But they then picked up PCO and powerbombed him from the ring to the floor.
It was a loud thud.
It was not a nice bump. And I enjoy PCO's work. I know you're not as on board as I am. I do enjoy PCO's work, and a lot of his work is very much like
being a stuntman.
But this was a bit too far for me. I didn't enjoy seeing that because it's a 51-year-old man I'm watching taking a powerbomb from two guys on their shoulders. He must have been, 12 feet in the air?
I wouldn't like a 20-year-old doing that.
No, I wouldn't like anybody doing that, and you just look at it and go, is that what you need to do to get over? Because that's too much.
I think it is, though. I can see why people like him, but I do not buy into the act. I must be honest. I'm not a fan.
So God then hit a gun stun on Brody and then the super bomb for the win. This was fine.
Absolutely fine.
Just not great that God won it.
But
it was good for the predictions for me, but
whatever. The best thing that I think we could talk about to do with this match is that when God made their entrance, our reaction was like, you know what? That's really cool. And absolutely everything about God should work. Like their whole character, their act.
For the video they showed at the start was awesome for them, for the new sort of entrance video.
Yeah, their entrance was awesome. They just can't put matches together well enough. Apart from that, like they're almost a total package. They get their characters. They're very good. Their look is very good, and they're part of the Bullet Club, but they just lack in the ring.
Post match, Toru Yano stole the IWGP tag titles, and we are recording this just after watching G1 Supercard, so we haven't had a chance to actually look and see any news yet. But at this point, Enzo and Big Cass, I believe, jumped the guardrail. We're not sure whether it's a shoot or a work. I kind of am leaning more towards the work side of things than anything else. But like I say, we've just finished watching the show before we started recording this, so we haven't had a chance to look and find out. But it looked like they jumped the barricades, and then Bully and the Briscoes sort of beat them down. They didn't show it on the screens, but it very much screamed out work to me, and that's not something I'm on board with at all.
And you could see it they very deliberately didn't talk about it very much, but the camera that they chose and the area that they were around the ring, you could see it. So I almost would rather, would I rather it be a work or a shoot? I don't know. But I just don't want them anywhere near one of my favourite companies, Ring of Honor. And I certainly don't want them anywhere near New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, I don't think that's happening. I don't think you have to worry anything about that.
Oof.
So, moving on swiftly, next up we had the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship match between the champion Zack Sabre Jr. and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Taka did the entrance for Sabre, which was awesome as usual, and they worked a very ground-based style early on, but Tanahashi was hitting some high-fly moves with the sort of springboard crossbody out of the corner and stuff like that. But it was very much a match that was based in technical senses. They sort of traded Cobra Twists, and there was a really good call on commentary. I can't remember who it was by, about Tana working out the Cobra Twist, because of course he knows how to get out of that move, because it's the Cobra Twist.
Yeah, because it's New Japan Young Lion bread and butter.
Yeah. He worked very there was a lot of dragon-based stuff in this match as well from Tanahashi. Really brought the dragon tonight, if you like. Sabre countered into a triangle and then Kimura the arm, but Tanahashi powered up and transitioned into the cloverleaf. Sabre fought back and made the roast, but then Tanahashi hit the sling blade and headed up top. Sabre cut him off though and attacked the arm. He got the European clutch for 2, and then the PK then connected for 2 again, but Tanahashi countered the Zack driver and got an O'Connor roll for 2. The Dragon Screw followed, but Sabre countered the Dragon Suplex into a European clutch for 2 again. Tanahashi hit the rolling twist and shouts, and then a sling blade followed, and that got 2. At this point, I had a sneaky suspicion Tana was actually going to go over, but Sabre countered the Dragon Suplex into a standing crucifix. He then pulled him to the ground and just worked into the armbar and eventually transitioned into orienteering with Napalm Death, which is a finisher that makes absolutely no sense to me how he named it, but it absolutely looks ridiculously sick.
You just make a pretzel of the guy, don't you?
He just twisted Tanahashi in all kinds of directions. It was violent and beautiful.
And yet again,
Zack Sabre Jr. tapped out Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Seriously, it's happened several times.
He's having a big year.
He's 3-2 now, isn't he, over Tana?
Is he not 3-1?
Oh, I thought it was 3-2.
It might be 3-2.
Either way, he has a
winning
record over Hiroshi Tanahashi. There are not many people over the last decade that can claim that.
Not at all.
He's gonna make at the very least the last day of the G1.
Yeah, we were talking about this, weren't we?
Yeah.
I've got a funny feeling he's the guy who loses in the finals this year.
Tonight, though.
Probably tonight, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of Naito, that's what we had next. My God, this match.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think it was as good as Cole and Gargano, but there's no way anything on Mania tonight touches this, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
No. So it was Tetsuya Naito versus Kota Ibushi for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. These two have a tendency to try and murder each other, and this match very much followed that sort of logic, if you like. They worked a safer style than usual early on, but they worked a very good, solid early build to a match. And then Naito eventually fought off a German and hit a dropkick for 2. Ibushi landed on his head, taking the bump, because of course he did. Ibushi landed on his head a lot in this match. Naito followed up with strikes and then hit a draping neck breaker, and the basement dropkick followed for 2. They worked up top, but Ibushi fought him off and hit the Pele. And then they worked to the apron, and Ibushi looked for the German, but Naito fought back, and Ibushi then hit a Rana to the floor, which was absolutely beautiful. The height he got when he jumped off the apron and sort of caught Naito with the Hurricane Rana was just absolutely beautiful. Back in, and Ibushi hit a violent-looking double stomp for 2. Naito countered the powerbomb, hit the Tornado DDT and covered for 2, and then he hit the Super Rana, and then Gloria, a very, very high-angle Gloria, followed for 2. They worked into a double down, and Ibushi hit the elevated German from the second rope for a great near fall. Ibushi then looked for the Kamigoye, but opted for a German instead, which got 2. Naito countered the Kamigoye and hit a stuffed jig and tonic for 2. They traded strikes, firing up, and Naito spat at Ibushi, which sort of upset Ibushi somewhat.
It got heat from the crowd as well.
But Naito hit a beautiful Poison Rana and then Destino for an absolutely amazing near fall that I bit on, even though I was convinced Kota Ibushi was going over. The players would just started going nuts at this point. Ibushi then countered a second attempt at the Destino and hit a head kick. Both men went down. Ibushi then hits a Bombardier. He followed up with a second, which got 2. He then hit the last ride, which they made look awesome because Naito's actually still getting power and he's still trying to fight out of it. Like, Naito's landing him and he's still trying to fight out of it. I've never really seen anybody do a fight and struggle like that so late into a move.
Which made it a shock when he actually hit it. Like, we were both like, oh, wow, he did it.
Yeah. He then hit a Kamigoye, and we have a new Intercontinental Champion. Finally, Kota Ibushi has won a big championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right, it's about time. Let me wax lyrical for a little bit. I know we've gone a bit long, but I need to. Kota Ibushi has been a massive name in Japanese wrestling since arguably around 2006 when he first came onto the scene and did work in Pro Wrestling Noah, tagging with Kudo, I believe. They had a really good match against Kenta Fuji in a tag competition.
Of course they did.
But since then he's got bigger and bigger, and obviously he's never really stayed in one place. He was always part of DDT, but then was sort of half and half with New Japan and DDT, and then went and did the Cruiserweight Classic and things like that, and came back as the Tiger Mask for the match he did at Wrestle Kingdom and then against Okada. And obviously then he's sort of New Japan redeveloped their trust in him, and now he's finally at the point where he should arguably have been probably about 5 years ago.
Well, he's actually signed a contract with them now, hasn't he? So
yes, but do you know what I mean? That's really what he should have been doing all along. Now, this is a great move, and I think he'll go from strength to strength, and I think the IC title will do very well with Kota Ibushi holding it.
And you think Naito gets a shot at Dominion for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship? I mean,
Naito, I think so. Yeah. I'll be interested to see now who they build towards facing Ibushi for the IC.
Well, I kind of think that's why Ospreay's dropped the Never Openweight Championship.
Ooh.
Because
in a rematch from Wrestle Kingdom,
he beat Ibushi for the Never Openweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom, so you could do that match at Dominion.
You know what? I'd like that, actually. I would really like that. Let's see where they go with it. And obviously, you've got Tanahashi to factor into the equation somewhere.
Yeah.
Or Zack Sabre Jr., for example. Like Sabre Ibushi would.
There's so many good matches.
Yeah.
And I do believe that New Japan will be releasing the cards for the sort of run-up and including the Don Taku show within the next day or so. So
once we see that, that'll give us a bit of a clue.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, we then moved on to the first half of our double main event. The ROH World Championship on the line in a triple threat ladder match between Jay Lethal, champion coming into the match, Marty Scurll and Matt Taven.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Marty was so over. But everybody really was in this match. I was kind of worried a little bit that the ROH guys would die in this sort of position after Kota versus Naito and before Jay White versus Okada. But all three guys were really over. Taven was massively hated here. Really really hated.
He did some really good work, though.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Taven in this
Yeah.
match. They built structures all around ringside. Skull got a ladder and set it up in corners, and then Body started getting tossed in the ladders.
Was Kevin Steen the agent for this match?
He could well have been.
Just go out there and build some stuff,
A lot
guys.
of structures being built. Sort of Skull then placed like Lethal in sort of a tree of war and wrapped the ladder around him, and then started smashing the ladder with chair shots, which was very violent. He got a new ladder and he grabbed the umbrella and started to climb, and I knew he was going to try and use the umbrella to unhook the title, which I thought was really cool, but Taven cut him off before he could get there. Taven then climbed, but then Skull stopped him and dumped him to the floor. At some point in this match, and I'm not sure, I haven't wrote it down in my notes, but unfortunately some fans were hit by some ladders on the outside.
It was where they made the X structure.
Oh, yes.
And Lethal threw it out the ring because he didn't need it. He didn't think to put it out at the front of the ring where there's at least the space for the ramp.
Yeah.
And it just bounced and rolled. But from the reports that I've heard just after we've finished watching the show, like reports have come out from Brian Alvarez that the fans are absolutely fine.
Which is good to hear. Skull and Taven then brawled, and Skull tripped him up and hit a 619, which I've never seen him hit before. He looked for the chicken wing, but Taven cut him off with a DDT, and then Skull worked the fingers. Unfortunately, with it being such a big arena, we couldn't hear the snaps as well as we usually do. But Taven, anyway, then hit a neck breaker onto the ladder. They then climbed, and Skull was eventually kicked off, but Taven's fingers were then broken while he was up there, and he physically just couldn't hang on to the ladder and ended up dropping down as well, which I thought was a really sort of cool piece of storytelling. Jay missed a ladder attack on Skull, and Skull dumped him. Skull made the X that we were just referring to with two ladders and suplexed Taven onto them. Absolutely violent and just disgusting.
It's awesome.
Lethal then hit a lethal injection on Skull and tossed the ladders out, which is obviously where they'd hit the fans, but I didn't make that note. He got a new one in, but Skull hit a brainbuster on the floor. It was a beautiful brainbuster as well. He then set up a table on the floor and teased putting him through the table with a pile driver from the apron. I was very scared at that point. But then Taven wiped him through the table with a spear, which the cameras missed almost. We saw him explode through the table, but the one thing that did hurt this show was the production wasn't great.
Yeah, it felt like Ring of Honor. Like I do love ROH, but it was very much like Ring of Honor camera work.
Oh, it was.
Because there was none of this. Like New Japan are great at their cinematography and things like that, and there wasn't any of those classic elements of what New Japan usually do.
Yeah. Lethal got a big ladder and put Taven on a table, and then went right to the top of the ladder, jumped off it, and elbow dropped Taven through the table. Skull now looked to climb, but Lethal got back in as well and climbed with him. They fought on a ladder, but then Taven got back with his own Purple Kingdom ladder, got in the ring, set it up, and climbed up next to them. They all fought up the ladders. Skull then made a ladder bridge on both sides and climbed as Jay brought in a third ladder. There was a chair shot by Taven, who then took out Skull. Taven then climbed. Lethal joined him, and so they traded strikes at the top. And then Taven knocked Jay onto the sort of ladder bridge and pulled the title down. I thought this was really good. They were in a difficult spot, but I thought they worked well. I didn't think it was blow away great, but I thought it was very good. And Taven got a lot of heat, and I thought he did really well in this match. And I'm interested to see what they do with his title run. It was time for Lethal to drop the belt. Personally, I would have put it on Marty. But I don't think Taven's the worst choice in the world.
No, I totally agree. I think they did as well as they could have done in the spot they were in. Like, they were never going to follow Ibushi and Naito, and they were never going to outdo Okada and Jay White. I agree with you. I'd have gone Skull if I was booking, but I think this does tell us that Skull's not going to be there for much longer, and perhaps they're playing the long game with things. And Taven did really, really well in this match. I've never been a big fan of his, but I was genuinely really impressed. So I will keep an eye out and see how things go with his reign moving forward. It's been a really good storyline, really. Him, feeling like he's the proper world champion and his route towards the title makes a lot of sense, and it's been really well booked.
So we then had our main event of the evening as Jay White defended the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada.
I've literally just done the Rainmaker pose, as you said.
Of course he has.
Yeah.
This was a really fun opening 20 minutes to this match, but it was the final sort of I'd say 15. I think it probably went about 35, didn't it? The final 15 that really made this stand out.
Not nice. Okada does good closing stretches. Who knew?
Who knew? So White chopped Okada, but Okada then cut him off with a dropkick. Gedo got up and distracted Okada, but he hits another dropkick, and White counters the Rainmaker into a beautiful sleeper suplex. White looked for the Blade Runner, but then they worked back and forth and traded chops. There was a dropkick by Okada, a Rainmaker by Okada. He hit another and only gets 2 on a great near fall. And at that point, I was like, oh my God, because I was like, how many people have actually kicked out of a full Rainmaker?
I'm pretty sure I know Naito has.
Yeah, and Tanahashi
and
as well.
I think Tana has as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact one, but I'm pretty sure it's literally just Tana and Naito.
Was it Wrestle Kingdom 10?
Probably. So when you think about it, that puts Jay White in, even despite what happened, that puts Jay in very elite territory.
Very elite territory.
Yeah, I know. I don't mean it like that. Before we get any rumours coming out, did not mean it in that way.
White countered the Tombstone into a Blade Runner, but he couldn't cover and both men went down. They struggled to their feet, slowly trading strikes. White starts to fade and just is barely making any contact with Kazuchika Okada. Gedo took the ref, and I knew it. I'd said to you when he was sort of barely hitting him, he's baiting him in here. And as soon as Gedo took the ref, there was the low blow from Jay White, and I thought this was going to go to the finish. But Okada countered the Blade Runner into a German, and then after a few counters back and forth, he hit a beautiful dropkick. The Rainmaker was blocked though, and White laid in strikes, but Okada wouldn't let go and hits the Rainmaker. He hits a second, and then the Tombstone, and another Rainmaker for the win. New IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada.
Yeah, Okada's got the belt again. All is right with the world.
Awesome. I loved this match. I thought it was a great main event. Didn't think it was as good as Ibushi Naito, but you say it was maybe the third best match we've seen so far this weekend?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd agree. I thought it was really, really good. It was made by the finishing stretch, which Okada is always amazing at doing. It's interesting that they've taken the belt off of Jay White. They did make a really good point. I think it was it Kevin Kelly?
That
said it was the first time since, was it
91?
91.
I think.
That 91 that there's been 2 consecutive zero reign defenses.
Yeah.
Sorry, zero
defense reigns.
Zero defense reigns. It's easy to say.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But I think Okada will have a decently long reign now, but I don't think it needs to be too long because he's just had his full ace reign.
Yes.
But yeah, really good match.
I loved this show. I didn't love it nearly as much as TakeOver, but
I'm not sure I'm going to love anything as much as TakeOver for a long time.
It's an unfair comparison, but I thought it was really good and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of comparing every Mania to Mania X7.
Yeah.
But this was
not fair.
This was a really, really, really good wrestling show. It really was. It was like a solid 8 out of 10 or something like that. It was really good.
And with that, I think we'll move on to our final segment, which is our predictions. So at TakeOver, we both got everything right, apart from we both got Shayna winning wrong, and I got Riddle winning wrong.
Yes!
So you won that one, and that puts you 3-1 up. And on the G1 Supercard, I went for Cobb when you went for Ospreay. I won that one. I went for GOD when you went for the Briscoes. I won that one.
I don't know why I did that now as well. I really don't know why I did that.
And I went for Okada when you went for White. So I got 3 more right than you at the G1 Supercard, but it only counts for 1.
It does.
So that makes it 3-2. And tonight we have WrestleMania, and WrestleMania will count for 2. So you can either go 5-2 up, or I can go 4-3 up.
Either way, there will be a winner or a leader.
A leader, yeah, I was going to say, not a winner. So with that, I think we get on to our WrestleMania predictions.
Let's go for it.
I'm just going to run through the card. So Buddy Murphy versus Tony Nese.
Nese.
Yeah, I'm going for Nese as well. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
Braun.
Yeah, I'm going Braun as well. And I think we've both got the same for the Women's Battle Royal. Asuka.
Yeah, surely it has to be Asuka.
It's got to be, right? And then the Revival versus Hawkins and Ryder.
It's going
to be Hawkins and Ryder, isn't it? So we're both the same for that. Are we both going for the Usos in the Fatal 4-Way tag title match?
I don't think any other team needs to beat them, to be honest.
Who are you going for in the Women's Fatal 4-Way tag match?
I have a funny feeling, I don't want it to happen, I've got a funny feeling that Samoa and Slaughterhouse are going to win. And Bailey and Sasha will turn on Bailey tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think it's between either Nia and Tamina or Banks and Bayley, but I'm going to go Sasha and Bayley. I think you're right that will eventually happen where Sasha turns on Bayley, but I don't think
Not
they'll
yet.
lose them the titles tonight. I think they'll keep them. It'll probably happen closer to sort of SummerSlam, something like that. AJ versus Orton. I'm going AJ.
AJ.
Yeah. Miz has got to beat Shane, right?
Surely he has to.
And then I've got to think Kurt's going over Baron. I know Kurt's retiring, but he's not going to lose. He's not going to lose to Corbin.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Joe against Mysterio.
Joe.
I'm definitely going Joe. I was wondering about this one, but with Ray being injured, I think they might have to keep this quite short, and I think Joe will go over. Lashley versus Finn. Finn's going over, right?
Finn, it's the demon. He has to win.
Hunter versus Batista.
Hunter.
Yeah, his career's online. It's got to be Hunter. I'm going for Roman against Drew.
I'm going for Roman too.
Yeah, and then we've got the three big ones, and we've been pretty much the same so far, apart from I've gone with Banks and Bayley, and you've gone with Samoan Slaughterhouse. So let's see how different we are for these three. Bryan versus Kofi. I'm going Kofi.
I'm going Kofi too. I think it just has to be. I think it would be a damning indictment of their booking, which, to be fair, would make sense. But if Kofi was to lose, but I think Kofi wins.
Brock versus Seth.
I have a real. I could be wrong here, and I have a feeling I may be anyway. But I've got a real sneaking suspicion that Lesnar's retaining.
No, you don't.
I find it really weird that all three of those babyface matches are going to be won, and they don't tend to do that nowadays. So I have a funny feeling that Lesnar retains. I think we need to be different anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Lesnar, and if I'm wrong, I will be chuffed about it.
I'm going with Seth. Yeah, I do think they're going to pull the trigger on all three big babyface. I mean, you can go Seth if you want. We have already gone different on the women's tag title match, so it's not like we wouldn't be different.
No, it's fine. I'll go Lesnar.
Okie dokie. So then we've only got one match left, the main event, which I think we both think Becky Lynch is winning. Yeah, it's got
Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch.
They can't get that wrong. I know they've got everything.
They've got the build of it.
They've got everything wrong in the build, but surely Becky's going over.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
And I think she'll be massively over.
We should be recording our podcast for Mania probably on Tuesday, I would say.
We'll
recover on Monday, and we'll probably record on Tuesday night.
Yeah, while we sleep for a long time.
Yeah, so we'll cover the predictions on that night. We'll go through WrestleMania. We may talk about Raw, we may not. We'll make that decision before we do the podcast, depending on who's seen what by that point.
And how much there is actually to cover as
well from Raw.
Yeah, there could be loads, there could be not as much as some years.
It's going to take a while to cover Mania, I imagine, because how long do you think the show's going to go tonight? 12 hours, 14 hours?
At least half a fortnight.
Yeah.
Which is a week. Why did I say half a fortnight?
So with that, we will then say goodbye for this show. We will see you on Tuesday for the WrestleMania recap show.
Yeah, and we hope you all...
Anything you want to say before we go?
All I was going to say was I hope everyone enjoys WrestleMania. Although we may be putting this out, I don't know, it depends on when we get it up, but this may have come out after Mania.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have a chance to get this uploaded because we're going off to watch WrestleMania very, very, very shortly. So with that, we definitely need to wrap this up. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just that I hope everyone
Sorry,
enjoys
we're out of time. We will see you Tuesday in Two Man Booth.